No law, no punishment. White collar crime is very unique in nature. Organized crime needs to be evaluated as investigation cannot be worked out. The case that I'll be working on is based on the logics, not based on the facts and the figures because it's not been shown till now, whereas the documents have been released and will be discussed. As per my understanding, what happens is the court uh, uh, does not evaluate a case because the investigation is going on, whereas it is very difficult to understand in a white collar case that who is a criminal or who is a victim. Due to this reason, the lack of understanding of organized crime and white collar crime makes a victim a criminal, and the victim feels stressed because he doesn't have the education of the particular topic. So what happens is the case of white collar crime is purely based on deception, a deception which cannot be understood by any random person. Which types of studies are required? As mentioned in the screen, justice is based on evaluations, based on facts, but at times it is very important to freeze the evaluation system to understand what exactly is happening. Now, for example, we have to work out with the witnesses, evidence, but how do you get evidence and witnesses in a white collar crime? The presentation is based on a Ponzi scheme which is based on financial crime, but in a different pattern this time. The fundamental rule of Ponzi scheme is that there should be more money coming in than going out. The same model is now being used by the government system. Justice is delayed because of intellectual complexity of crime. But what kind of crime? The government is now creating a new type of crime, which is there should be more fake cases coming in than going out. The fundamental rule of Ponzi scheme is the same in this case as well, whereas the only difference is black money or white money. Ponzi scheme has been using white money, whereas this case will be talking about the black money which was involved and been planned by the government officials. The crime is based on high income group of a cooperative housing society based in Mumbai. A case based on financial fraud but without any financial report. So how does this happen? The pattern of Ponzi scheme was of getting more income coming in than going out, due to which the case cannot be detected. In the similar manner, even the police has been doing the same thing. There are more fake cases being registered than getting justice, but the only difference is there is no evidence in this particular case because police has the authority. So what exactly are we talking about? Ponzi scheme does have documents, but this case doesn't have. The government has the liberty to file a case without any evidence, and they can do that on oral evidence as well. The person gets arrested for 90 days without any evidence, and none of them have ever found any documents till date. So what exactly are we talking about here now? Is similar to what the largest hedge fund manager in the world, Madoff, had done, who was not immune to the volatility of the global funds for global financial crisis. And in this particular case, the police is not in the same situation. With reference to the Enroll scandal, where it was been discovered that the fraud is a cyclical phenomena. The same cyclical phenomena is being used in this particular case as well, where victim gets tagged as criminal and the criminal gets tagged as whistleblower, whereas the whistleblower himself was the victim and his strategy was being diffused by the police to get more of black money or the bribe. Now what happens is the immunity of Madoff as a hedge fund manager is similar to what the FIR of the police does, where the justice system denies and backs out from all the activities by mentioning that the case is in the court. Now what happens now is the case which is in the court requires a new evaluation because police is not intellectually equipped Now, consider government as a company, and their core element of profitability is black money, not the white, as compared to the Ponzi scheme. So what now is what is happening is the system of white money, which was being used in Ponzi scheme, is now exactly the same, but for black money by the government in the most corrupt countries. And the court does not initiate the cases because complainant has never filed the evidence. They keep on delaying using the same strategy that they don't have the evidence. But how can you expect a first grader kid to appear for 10th standard exams? Now, what happens is the offenses that involve obtaining material advantage by making false representations becomes more stronger because of the government law that oral evidence can be used for filing the initial police case. But in this case, the cooperative minister and the High Court had given the order that the case should not be given any importance because there is no evidence. Now, in this situation, the cover-up strategy starts in which the police Ponzi scheme describes a scam that registers earlier fake FIR for justice from the incoming justice of later fake FIR, which means the only difference in such cases is that people are afraid to question the handler since they have power to suppress. In addition, many of the gangsters have entered the profession of white collar crime to commit Ponzi scheme on those who are weak, just the way Ponzi had confirmed to his friends in Boston that he can double the investment in 90 days. In this similar manner, the government officers were doing the same activity by mentioning their team members that they can get a particular victim framed and increase the amount of bribe for their team members, on the basis of which the fake case can be launched. Based on oral evidence. Now the situation becomes more difficult, and the only difference between the 90 days double investment of Ponzi is being converted to 90 days of imprisonment in India. What happens in India is any person can be arrested on the basis of oral evidence for about 90 days, and the person is not required to file any evidence. The police is expected to do to make the necessary investigations, due to which such activities is very much possible. Now, the difference between how Ponzi scheme crashes and how these kind of police converted Ponzi schemes crashes is very similar again. The promoter vanishes in Ponzi scheme, whereas in such police cases the complainant gets vanished. There is no evidence of where the investment was being made in Ponzi scheme, whereas in such cases there is no details of evidence. And the next particular point which we can consider is investigations by regulatory authorities find the regime fraudulent. Whereas in these situations, the public finds the police or the government mechanism fraudulent, due to which such situations happen. The video talks about basically two specific cases having a fraud of 8.10 crores and 2.40 crores, which is basically crores is as good as millions in Indian currency. The design behind the sketch is being drawn is basically the water should flow in the vessel, but what happens in cases in India is the water is being sucked by the tap rather than water coming out of the tap. The uniqueness of the case was that only one was being arrested out of the 11 and mentioned in the FIR of the police. 5 gave the statement to the police. 2 had already died in the before the evidence could be searched, and 5 of them were not even aware that there was any such FIR or complaint filed by the police. The main reason why this happened was that they were part of Times of India group, which is a very well-known newspaper in India. Now the facts is as strong as the government official had filed the FIR against these individuals on the basis of fake representation. The officer didn't had any representation from his particular department that he's authorized to file any such complaint. The court, ministers, and other relevant agencies had said no to such case, but the reality was completely different. The fake case was being filed, and in that manner there is no need of friction. There's no need of evidence in such cases, so the deception was being played out very well. As is mentioned in the Ponzi scheme as well, that the whistleblower when emerges, the scheme may collapse under its own weight as the new investment slows. The case in the police Ponzi scheme is kind of similar, that it collapses when the flow of evidence slows down. The flow of written evidence slows down, and they are stuck only on oral evidence. Now what happens in such situation is the complainant turns into a criminal because they are filing a case against the government. So the power of that the government has in their hands becomes more intense because of they being committing a white collar crime. Now just imagine that you are constructing a building having 3 floors. Now imagine that the first 7 government officials who had entered the concerned organization, or in this case the housing society, which has committee members in it who operate the society in a manner where they are not charging anyone for the administration cost. What they did was, if there is any particular case with link to any fraud, they are supposed to administrate the private sector committee, which is in the housing society. If they find any evidence, then they are supposed to mention it to their concerned government authorities, and then the concerned department will go to government courts for the recovery, or just file a police case if the financial recovery has failed. But the entire thing has happened on the other round. What has happened in this particular case is there is no ground floor, and on the basis of that the first and second floor have been made. How is that possible? So what people do is they conduct their corruption in such a manner that it is difficult for a common person to identify what type of white collar crime has happened on them. Now let's be more specific to the elements of these police FIRs that was being launched against 11 people. What had happened was that there were 2 FIRs filed. Now the government official had filed an FIR having a fraud of rupees 2.40 million, and the private person had filed a case of 8 million. The funny part was, technically both the people didn't have any audit reports to submit, they didn't have any financial evidence to submit, they didn't have any accountants details to testify such fraud. Now the funny part was, on technical basis the government official should have filed the FIR first, and basis on that a private person should have filed an FIR. That because government has filed an FIR on these individuals, I am following up the case further down. But what had happened in the reality was, the private person filed an FIR, and in the courtroom it was been mentioned by the judge that how can a private person file a FIR when the government is in charge of that particular housing society, the committee of the society. But that particular aspect was misused again, where the government filed an FIR after 3 days, and again without evidence. And what they mentioned in the FIR was they had about 5 people who had complained them, on the basis of which they had taken over the private housing society. And however, those 5 people have mentioned in their police statement that they were being asked to come and talk to the government officer. They didn't never file any complaint to the government of any such fraud. Now, this was one of the evidence where it becomes even more funnier that what exactly had happened, because the details of fake cases were being created by government officials rather than being created by any other person. The art of white collar crime is based on a very simple commonplace, in which the white collar person has the liberty to come directly to any location and commit the crime. It's not in anything like a burglary. White collar offenders do things differently, and that's exactly what had happened in this particular case as well, where the government officer had himself created the space to enter the location and commit the fraud. They often have a perfect right to be where they are and where the offense occurs. Now, in this particular location, the offender had legitimate access to the location in which the crime was committed. The offender, technically, which right now is the government officer himself, was separated from the victim, so no one could identify what exactly he is up to by coming at the location. The offender's actions have a superficial appearance of legitimacy. Now, what has happened is the officer was a government officer, but the authorities was not official, but it was being deceptive to all the other locations, including the media, the police departments of the local agencies, and the victims of the housing society, that he has a legitimate identity to come and act on the government behalf. The deception was been created that he is on behalf of the department, but he was not been given the permission. The trust was being abused very specifically. And the evidence of he being a fake person was concealed very strongly to conduct his conspiracy. The deception again was very complicated for anyone to understand, due to which since 10 years no one could find out what exactly had happened. As shown in the diagram out there, the vessel is basically the FIR which was being filed against 11 people, but only one was being arrested. The cloth which once dropped inside the water should be wet. An FIR filed against people should be arrested, but only one person was been arrested. Mentioning that it was a fake case meant only for the one purpose, not for the others, because that one person was the whistleblower of the crime committed by the government. Now, moving on to how the deception game is being played further down is very, very simple. Just the way in Ponzi scheme, the scheme which is fraudulent in the core element or in the root cause of it, that the first person will get maximum amount of profit when the second person pays in, is the exact situation in this particular case as well, that the first particular case was fraud, due to which the following cases are not true as well. The promise of getting the investments doubled is as simple as creating more amount for the bribe or the black money that the police could generate after launching the first particular case. Now, what has happened is the glasses which were white or transparent turns black in a certain brightness, but that doesn't mean that the brightness, once the brightness goes off, the glass won't will remain black in color. It does cut back to its normal transparent nature. The fake cases which were being filed were meant to be fraudulent in nature, but in reality the financial report of the fraud, the department evaluation, the recovery order, the police complaint and FIR, the court convictions, nothing has been followed in the pattern which it should have been followed. Now coming to the details of the deception techniques. Deception techniques is in relational in nature, where it is very difficult to identify and control the offenses which have been used in a nature that one person is misleading all the others. Now in this particular case, the government officer who had entered the society in order to make the private sectors working more smoother and shut down all the defects in the system, he created the defects himself and made the situation or the case so complicated that no one could even identify that defect. In other terms, the details which were been given to the police, not to his department, were in such a nature that the civil case was been converted to a criminal case. The government officers and the High Court and the ministers who were linked to that particular case had already given a clean chit to this private sector housing committee, that there is no fraud. But because that one particular government officer wanted to mislead the people around him, and he wanted to misuse his legitimacy, converted the entire civil case to a criminal case, knowingly that the police does not need any evidence in order to file a case. They need evidence only when the case is being diverted to the court. Deception is subjective. The techniques which have been shown on the screen are basically the coaches of a train, but the below pattern was being shown having different types of coaches, where one can be a male courier coach, one is a commercial coach, and the other one is a oil tanker coach. The deception which has been happening here is very closely related to the new techniques of abuse of trust. The trust which can be in such a nature that a person who is really a victim, who was supposed to go to a particular justice department to get justice, but what has happened is the same justice provider have converted the justice in their favor. And to conclude, the situation up there, as you can see on the screen, is completely different, because the design of such a white collar crime was being done by the government official himself, and the opportunity structure for the white collar crime committed was shaped by the offender himself because of his influence of the regulatory regime that governed their activities. And that is the main reason that the Ponzi scheme, which was meant to be or is usually considered to be in a white collar crime or in a white collar money, was this time used in black money and in corruption part as well. Due to this reason, it is understood that Ponzi scheme can be used by everyone. Victims turn into criminals on fake Ponzi schemes, but in reality the police has converted the model of Ponzi scheme for their fake cases to increase their bribe profitability. The case of white collar structure is hereby concluded by me, and I complete my presentation. Thank you very much.